Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu, and I'm so excited to be back with all of us, all of you viewers, and Rasik Raman Prabhu too. But I have one request with all of you guys today. I missed last week's session, so you'll have to help me with the recap. This time, the recap won't come from my end, but it will have to come from your end. And I'm sure there are many people here in the audience who do a very good job at that, Mansi. My direction is towards you. Yes. So, any key points that you'd like to mention from Prabhu's previous session, our 11th session of the Gita for You podcast? Just to give a hint, there are 3 things that are required to acquire knowledge that we discussed last time.
तो आप होमवर्क करके नहीं आए तो क्या दूसरों को होमवर्क कर? ओके, चलेगा चलेगा
चलेगा प्रभु. That's just an interesting way to put myself in the background, But
yes,
you got me anyway. 3 things required to acquire knowledge. Yes, please use the chat box for all the interesting answers. Okay, until the answers come, let me give a clue. Maybe the first one, a receptive heart. And okay, cool, perfect. So a receptive heart, an inquisitive mind, and an active heart. Sorry, a receptive heart, an inquisitive mind, and active hands. I'm sorry, not
yes.
heart again, it's active hands. And the IQ equivalent for acquiring spiritual knowledge. There are 2. So to acquire scientific knowledge, to acquire the knowledge that is taught in schools and colleges, you require a great IQ. But that equivalent in the domain of spiritual knowledge is Shraddha and self-control. And we also discussed whether religion is all about blind faith or not, blind following or not, that it's most popularly accused of. Taking forth those discussions forward and taking that as a background, Prabhu, I'm all ready to fire my questions at you today. So I won't hold back, and I'll start with my first question. Are you ready, Prabhu?
Yes, I have my shield. All participants are there. So if I am not able, they will definitely help me out.
Great. Prabhu, my first question is, generally yoga, when you talk about yoga, when you talk about meditation, people have some fancy ideas, and levitating is one of them, where this idea of rising up or taking your body up into the air or having a out of body experience, that is, of course, these are 2 different things, but does this happen through the yoga system? Or a more clear question is the yoga system, is this the purpose of yoga system? What is your take on this?
Okay, so can one levitate based on practice of yoga? And do you really want to levitate? Yes.
I mean, it'll be fun if that happens, but is it even required?
So the simple you can do it actually, Jai Kishan. It's not rocket science. कर सकते हो आप, अभी कर सकते हो immediately.
Really?
Are you ready to do it? The only question is, are you ready to do it? Okay, so under your chair, there will be a latch. You hold it, and then the chair will rise, and that's how you see I am levitating. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. We are not on the topic. We are just so levitation. Yeah, we're warming up. So levitation is definitely one of the byproducts which is possible from the yoga practice. And it is said that there are these Ashta Siddhis, the 8 mystic perfections that one can attain by practice of Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga Yoga means 8-limbed yoga process, which has yam, niyam, asan, pranayam, dhyan, dharana, samadhi. So pratyahara also. So it has these 8 limbs, and one of the byproducts of this Ashtanga Yoga is to attain mystic siddhis: anima, laghima, prapti, ishita, vashita, kama vashaita, prakamya, etc. So these 8 mystic siddhis. Anima is to become smaller than the smallest, to become atomic in size. And then prapti is to get whatever you desire. You desire you to have iPhone 14 Pro Max जो भी है, तो आप डिजायर करने से आपके हाथ में आ जाएगा, तो वो प्राप्ति सिद्धि है. Then Ishita, to create and to annihilate at will. You can create a planet and annihilate it at will. For example, Vishwamitra Rishi created this planet, a heavenly planet for Trishanku, right? So yes, there are these differences. These Laghima is to become lighter than air, to basically to float in air, to demonstrate anti-gravitational properties. So yes, there are these 8 mystic perfections which appear like mystical and magical, which are possible by practice of Ashtanga Yoga system. However, serious yogis consider these mystic perfections, these siddhis, as obstacles, and they avoid trying to get into them unless they have some service for it. Because there are gross energies working in the universe, and there are subtle energies. Gravitational pull is a gross energy, right? Then you have gross matter, which is around us, which we can see, which we can perceive, which we can measure. But then beyond that which is visible and measurable through gross senses, there are subtle energies working, which we feel, which we perceive, but we cannot see, we cannot measure. Right? So just as gravitational energy cannot be seen in one sense, it is perceived, that how it acts, right? So there are even subtler energies which are not seen but are perceived. For example, you enter a room and you find one person inimical to you in that room. तो जिस डायरेक्शन में वो व्यक्ति बैठा है, उस डायरेक्शन से आपको एक वाइब्स आने लगते हैं. How many of you have had that experience? You can all let us know in the chat box that you have experience of someone sending positive energy, positive vibes to you, someone sending negative vibes to you, and without even saying anything, you can perceive that. Right? You can type in the chat box. Yes, all of us have experience of it, and I'm even on Zoom, you can perceive positive energies, positive vibes coming from our dear participants, from Surya Prabhu, from Mansi, from Anvay, from Virendra ji, from Subhashini, from Guru Bhakti, and that gives us positive energy to present, right? So if it can be perceived even on Zoom without physical proximity, so definitely there's something which is beyond the explainable gross interaction of matter which exists. Similarly, you might have experienced that at a particular place in your home, you just go to the bed and immediately fall asleep. But then you go to a new place, and somehow, even if you are dead tired, but you're not able to get good sleep. You every few minutes, every few hours, your sleep is disturbed. So there are subtle energies. There are certain Vastu Shastra talks about it. So there are subtle energies around us and within us. Hmm. And so definitely we cannot deny the existence of subtle energies, and which is, we have the gross body made up of gross matter, and then we have subtle body, the astral body, hmm, which has these four other sheets. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad talks about the five sheets of our existence. Annamaya Kosh is the gross material body, which the doctors and the clinical laboratories can uh, vouch about. Yes, we know everything about it, and we can cure it. But then beyond that Annamaya Sharir, which is made up of grains and matter, there is the Pranamaya Kosha, which is consisting of the life airs, the subtler life airs, which give life, prana, to this cross body. Then there is the Manomaya Kosh, the mental, as we were talking of the vibes that we experience, right? So that comes in the mental plane. Hmm? So we are all thought transmitters. We are emitting thoughts. We are emitting vibes of thoughts. And we are receiving thoughts. We are transmitting and receiving thoughts. So there's the Manomaya Kosh. Then there's Vijnanamaya Kosh, our intellectual wisdom body, by which we can differentiate good from bad. We can differentiate what is favorable, what is unfavorable, right? So all of those discrimination, and then which we cannot see. Intellect is something you cannot see, right? Mind is something which you cannot see. And then there is the Anandamaya Kosh, which is the soul, which is full of bliss, whose existence is meant to be full of bliss. So therefore, there are more subtler levels of existence. However, we are aware of just the gross Annamaya Kosh, but the story doesn't stop there. There's much more to reality than all of that. So yes, when you practice mystic yoga, Ashtanga yoga, or any form of yoga, bhakti yoga, you refine your existence from gross to subtle. You become more aware and conscious and in control of your prana. When you practice yoga, asanas, pranayam, you are able to control your prana at will. Your ability to hold breath, kumbhak, increases, right? And then as you perform more meditation, your ability to control your mind increases. You are able to be more focused. You can practice dhyana. Then you get more control over your intelligence. Basically, your intellect becomes sharpened. And then as you practice yoga, then you come to the state of spiritual realization, self-realization, God realization. So gradually, sequentially, you progress from the gross level of existence to the subtle level of existence. And in this journey from the gross to level, there are different milestones. There are different gifts or rewards which may come in your journey. And one of these rewards which may come in your journey are these mystic siddhis. But serious yogis consider these mystic siddhis as distractions on their path, unless they have some service to do with these siddhis, right? Because Vishwamitra used this siddhi to give Trishanku a planet in between heavens and earth, but he exhausted all his spiritual potency and tapa on maintaining that planet. And therefore, all of his Brahma Tej was lost. And then back to square one. He had to practice austerity from beginning. What is the use of a planet in midair, which is not eternal? So then as he purified his consciousness, he realized that this show of power is again the same material consciousness. The gross materialist can control gross matter, and a subtle materialist can control subtle matter. Even though I have become a yogi, but still my tendency to control has not gone. My tendency to enjoy my ego has not gone. So I am having subtle matter to control, and someone else has just gross matter to control, but the controllership is still there, and my heart is not purified. So therefore, serious yogis consider these kind of siddhis as distractions. And anyways, चलो मान लो आपको आ भी गया ये सिद्धि of levitation. आप अभी levitate करने लग गए हवा में 30 सेकेंड, 1 मिनट, 2 मिनट, 3 मिनट, या फिर आप हवा में चलने का आपको या वाटर पे चलने का आपको सिद्धि आ गया, then what? After some time you will get bored, because you will see birds flying much higher. मतलब क्या करूं मैं, अचार डालूं क्या levitate करने का? Yeah, if I see a motorboat rushing past me while I'm walking on water, मतलब बोर हो जाऊंगा. So I can walk through water without the gravitational pull, but or I can float in air, but can I float through life without being pulled down by the gravitational pull of senses, by the gravitational pull of sensory attractions and aversions? So what about that levitation, where I walk through life without being entangled by the quicksand of material passions, of materialistic ego? So that is the levitation which real yogis, the serious yogis, the hardcore yogis are really looking for. Because this is an intermediate state which is again a trap. कि आपको इस सिद्धि आ गया तो अगेन वो कंट्रोलरशिप का एक ऐसा नशा चढ़ जाता है कि देखो अभी मैं लोगों को इम्प्रेस कर सकता हूँ, and I can get following, and I can get fame and prestige and money, but then again on the at what cost? I lose all my tapasiddhi and my purification of heart. So therefore, what Krishna speaks of in this 5th chapter is how we can levitate our consciousness. So if you read verse 9th and 10th in this chapter, very beautiful. Krishna is talking of levitation of the consciousness, how you can achieve it. Lipyate nasa papena padmapatra ivambasa. That such a yogi is not entangled, is always having a protective coat of spiritual consciousness, even though he or she is coming in touch with materialistic activities. Seemingly they may be doing the same job, same studies, but they are not, because their consciousness has a higher purpose, and because they have a spiritual knowledge, they are not entangled by it. They so let me just read out the verse for you. Yeah, beautiful verse 8, 9, 10. You can see, नैव किंचित करोमिति युक्तो मन्येत तत्त्ववित् पश्यन् शृण्वन् स्पृशन् जिघ्रन् अश्नन् गच्छन् स्वपन् श्वसन् प्रल्पन् विसृजन् गृह्णन् उन्मिषन् निमिषन् अपि इन्द्रियाणि इन्द्रियार्थेषु वर्तन्त इति धारयन्. It says a person in divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving, sleeping and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving or opening or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects and that he is aloof from them. Further says, Brahmani adaya karmani sangam tyaktva karotiha lipyate nasa papena padmapatra ivambasa. One who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering unto the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by sinful actions, as a lotus leaf is untouched by water. So the lotus leaf has a hydrophobic layer, जिसके ऊपर पानी गिरता है तो उसको चिपकता नहीं है, it just drops off. So similarly, a yogi, when he comes in contact, he has this levitation ability of levitate his consciousness, even though he or she is in touch, he or she is eating. So he or she is not eating for pleasure of the senses. Hmm? It is an act of service. Hmm? And in such consciousness, any activity can be spiritualized. So that's the beauty of this yogic, real yogic siddhi of levitation. And you have heard of this maglev trains. Unfortunately, we had a train accident yesterday, and I request everyone to sincerely pray for the deceased or the injured and their family members. So it's a very tough time for them. Let's all pray to the Lord that He gives them strength to overcome this bereavement. So I was talking about maglev trains. So maglev trains have this ability to levitate on, on the strength of magnetic field, by which they can overcome the gravitational pull and they can move fast forward. So similarly, a yogi, whatever he is doing, he has this levitation of consciousness, and whatever activity they do, they are not caught up by the friction of sense gratification, and they can progress very quickly towards their ultimate goal of self-realization and God realization. Okay, so that is the long and short of levitation. Karna hai kya abhi bhi?
You gave the true meaning of levitation, Prabhu, which is of consciousness. And am I audible, Prabhu?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. So you gave the true definition of levitation, that is of consciousness rather than the body. And how interesting is it, Prabhu, that on the pursuit of purpose, there's always pleasure to test you whether how strong your focus is on the purpose, is on your purpose. And thank you for touching on that, on the incident, the train accident that happened in Odisha, and our sincere prayers, as you said, to all those who are deceased, injured, and affected by the accident in all different ways. Moving on, Prabhu, you even spoke of Anandmay Kosh as one of the 5 layers, and Anandmay Kosh being the basis of the soul's existence, that is in bliss. Yeah, and you spoke about energies, different energies. Now, this is a fact that Lord Krishna, who's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is all energetic. He is the super soul, supreme soul. So when he was speaking of these topics, I was driven to this question, that if God exists, he's good, he's still in control, then how can he permit so much suffering to happen in this world?
Okay. So if God is good, God is great, God is sometimes there. There was one rabbi whose 14-year-old son died. So then he thought that his faith was shaken at that point of time, and then he said, "Is God all good? Is God all loving?" Intuitively, yes, God should be all loving. So if he's all loving, then how can this happen to my innocent son, 14-year-old? What sin had he done for it to befall on him, this death, untimely death to befall on my son? He had not committed any sin. So that means God might be all good, all loving, but not all powerful. There might be some powers which are beyond God, which have resulted in my son's tragic death. But then he said, maybe it may be other way around. God may be all powerful, but he might not be all good. He might be taking pleasure in the death of my son. And then, so basically, this upheaval of his emotions, he wrote a book also, why bad things happen to good people. But when we understand scientifically from the scriptures, we understand that God is all good and God is all great at the same time. God did not create evil, God created free will. And if we use it in an evil way, then we reap the results of our actions. And it is a this life is a chapter in a book. And one particular day is a page in that chapter. So a chapter in the book means that it has a chapter before that and a chapter after that. So when we understand that what we are reading today in our life is based on the past chapter of what we did, what we wrote in the previous chapter has resulted in what we are reading in today's chapter. And what we write in today's chapter will result in what we read in tomorrow's chapter. So life is a multi-chapter book. And so our past actions have correspondence in our future consequences. And so it's our free will, and how we use it yields the results. And we always ask the question, why it happens to me when things go wrong. In fact, the University of Massachusetts, they did a survey. They interviewed many people who went through stroke and got paralysis. And 90% of them, they asked the question, why me? मुझे ही स्ट्रोक क्यों हुआ, मुझे ही पैरालिसिस क्यों हुआ, किसी और को हो सकता था, मुझे क्यों हुआ, उसको तो नहीं हुआ, इसको नहीं हुआ, मुझे क्यों हुआ. So 90% of them, and it's natural, they asked why me. And then out of them, 60%, they kind of blamed God or fate for it. 20% said it is because of some that the consequence of this will be good for me. So probably because of that it happened to me. So different reasons people gave, but everyone asked the question, why me? But then the same question, when the interview was done of people who won lotteries, so except one, no one asked the question, why me? मुझे लॉटरी क्यों लग गया? तो कोई नहीं पूछा. तो जब जीवन में कुछ बुरा होता है तो हम प्रश्न पूछते हैं, why me? But when कुछ अच्छा होता है, वही प्रोविडेंस से या मतलब लक से बोल सकते हो, लेकिन हम ये नहीं पूछते why me, right? So that is negative agency bias. In psychology, there's a term called negative agency bias, that we want to find a scapegoat for the negative that has happened in our life. Because बचपन से ही हमको कंप्लेन करने का या शिकायत करने का आदत है कि मैं गिर गया, मेरे करने की वजह से. मैं बच्चा टेबल पे चढ़ रहा था, उसको मना किया था, फिर भी वो चढ़ने का कोशिश किया, गिर गया, फिर जोर जोर से रो रहा है, crying loud and disturbing everyone. Then the mother comes and she has to somehow or other pacify, so she beats the ground. कि अरे इसने मारा तुझे, इसने मारा. And then the child, okay, हाँ, अभी किसी की पिटाई की, किसी को आपने ब्लेम किया मेरे प्रॉब्लम की वजह से के लिए, अभी अच्छा है, अभी वो चुप हो गया. So somewhere it's deep rooted in us that we want to blame someone for the wrong that happens to us. We don't want to take ownership. अरे मैं चढ़ा था मूर्ख, किसने बोला था मुझे, अभी गिरा तो मेरा कसूर है. But no, we want to blame someone else. And even when we grow up, we want to blame for the wrongs that happen and take the credit of the good that happens to us. So that psychology is there, but when we understand the complete philosophy of the Gita, we realize that Krishna is the all good, loving, and the all great, powerful Lord also. So if you read the 15th verse of the 5th chapter, let me read it for you. Nadatte kasyachit papam न चैव सुकृतं विभु Ajnanena jnanam tena muhyanti jantava. Nor does the Supreme Lord assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings are bewildered because of the ignorance which covers their real knowledge. Na kartatvam na karmani lokasya srajati prabhu na karma phala samyogam swabhavastu pravartate. The embodied spirit does not create activity, nor does he induce people to act. All this is enacted by the modes of material nature. So, basically, the Lord is not to blame our beginningless ignorance, and our karma is to blame for what we go through in life. But Lord is so great and loving that even the bad reactions of our sinful actions, he uses even those bad reactions to bring us on the right path, right? So that's the beauty of the world which God has created. So does that resonate or make sense?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, very much. I mean, what really hit me hard is the negativity agency bias that you said. We always need a scapegoat to blame our negative occurrences in life. And why me is the question asked when there is something negative that happens with us, but not when there's a lottery that's won or when there's a positive event happening in our life. Prabhu, this I mean, you spoke about God did not create evil but free will. Yeah, and even the negativity agency bias. In the society, as you said, we always keep looking for the scapegoats, be in the area of politics, be in the area of academia, be in any area. There is a ruling, there is an opposition. So in a society like this, what do you feel, Prabhu? Is it possible to attain equal rights or equality in society? What is your take on this?
Is it possible to have equal rights or equality in society?
Or is it just a far-fetched thought, which is too idealistic, but never to be attained? And we can just keep talking about this, but nothing will really happen on ground. Is it too idealistic?
Okay, so equality can be understood on a common platform. When you have a common platform, then only you can talk of equality. Just a second, my battery is getting discharged. I'll just put it in charging. Yeah. Okay, yes, I'm back and on charging. Okay. So what about equality? So equality का ऐसा है कि we need a common platform for equality. कि अगर मैं फर्स्ट फ्लोर पे खड़ा हूँ और आप ग्राउंड फ्लोर पे खड़े हो, there is no question of equality, right? We need to stand on a common platform, right? So that common platform cannot be material because materially there is so much diversity, Equality can be possible on the spiritual platform. No two fingerprints are similar. We are talking about equality. Look at the way nature has made everyone. There is beauty in diversity, right? अगर सब लोग एकदम एक जैसे ही होते, अगर इस विश्व में केवल एक ही प्राणी होता, हाँ, there are 84 lakh yoni, 84 lakh species, but if the creator wanted equality, he would have created just one species and no male female, just one gender. Okay, but then somehow we want to kind of artificially impose equality on material platform. But if our eyes are open, if our intellect is a bit open, we can see the beauty of the creation is in its variety. There are beasts who roam around on ground on earth. There are birds which fly in the sky. There are reptiles which crawl on the ground. There are amphibians. There are aquatics. So there is variety everywhere, and even within the same species, no two beings are same. No two humans have the same fingerprint. आप कितना भी फैक्ट्री में बोलो कि हमारा टाइगर लॉक कंपनी का लॉक है, एकदम परफेक्ट है, इसका तोड़ कभी नहीं मिलेगा. पर तोड़ क्या है, वो हर 30 चाबी के बाद में वही उसका प्रिंट रिपीट होता है. So the 31st key is the same as the first key. So man cannot produce variety because we are just so limited. But God has created unlimited variety. So instead of celebrating that variety, we want to artificially impose oneness. And so basically we are trying to rebel against God कि तुम्हारा design सही नहीं है. I want to set it right. सब कुछ बराबर करो, सब कुछ equal करो. But then we are taking ourselves away from the beauty of the creation. So yes, to experience and relish the beauty of the creation, you need to celebrate the variety that is there within each and every one of us. If I want to really appreciate someone else, then I will see how he's able to do things which I cannot. Right? वो इतना dashing questions पूछना कि मतलब, Roji, I'm going to shoot this question at you and are you ready? नहीं कर सकते भी हम, right?
Why me, Prabhu?
Why me? तो negative agency bias नहीं है. But the thing is that we have this, if you want to appreciate, we will see things which the others can do, which we can't do, right? So, चलो अगर मान लो एक क्लास में, say Mansi, you just finished your exams, right? Yeah. So now if the university declares that from this semester onwards, आप सबके classroom में, how many students are there in your class? Can you tell us? The chat box. 120 students. So 120 students का सबका marks का average निकालेंगे, and that average marks will be given to everyone. Equality. Why to make someone feel that, oh, they are not so good, someone is a top ranker, first ranker? This is discrimination. Come on. We are in an equal society. We are living in an equal society. So out of 100, किसी का 5 marks आया है, किसी का 100 marks आया है, किसी का 50 आया है, सबको add up करो, average निकालो. So the topper also gets 30 marks. The last ranker also gets 30 marks. So Mansi, would for the next semester, would you be inspired to study hard or no? Not at all. And for that matter, none of us, right? If such weird and crazy ideas of equality were imposed, the society just can't operate, right? So it's crazy right from its means outset, like kind of the way it is spelled out, what to speak of when we end up applying it. So the thing is, on material platform, there cannot be equality. We need to celebrate the variety that is there. सबको engineer क्यों बना रहे हो आप? सबको doctor क्यों बना रहे हो? उसकी variety को celebrate करो. But on the spiritual level, this desire of equality doesn't spring from the material platform. This desire of equality springs from the spiritual platform. From the spiritual platform, all of us are equal and have the same characteristics of Satchit Ananda. We are all eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss, parts and parcels of God. So, and that's what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita in this chapter. The beautiful philosophy of oneness in spiritual identity, that all of us are spirit souls. Vidya Vinay Sampanne Brahmani Gavi Hastine Shunicheva Swapakecha Pandita Samadarshina. So this verse Krishna says, the humble sages by virtue of true knowledge see with equal vision a learned and a gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater, an outcast. So really, if we want to inculcate equality, we need to see things from a spiritual platform. We will have the common platform of spiritual understanding. Then there will be brotherhood. Then there will be equality. There will be equal opportunities in terms of spiritual growth. But on the material platform, we need to learn that I am different from him or her. He or she is different from them. And they are good as they are. I should not try to become them, nor I should try to make them like me, right? Otherwise, I am losing out on the potential that I have or they have. Okay, makes sense?
Yes, Prabhu, you gave very nice, a very beautiful perspective on equality. First of all, that we should be ready to celebrate variety, and then this bhavana of equality comes from the fact that we all are spiritual beings who are Satchidananda in nature. Thank you, Prabhu, for that beautiful explanation. Prabhu, अब करते थोड़ी खुशी की बात.
Okay.
थोड़ी happiness की बात, थोड़ी happening की बात. It's the weekend and everyone is geared for a fun zone. Tomorrow is Snan Yatra too. So जब खुशी की बात चल रही है, जब खुशियों की बात करते हैं लोग, is there any difference between happiness and pleasure? Or to put this in a better way, is happiness just chemicals flowing through your brain? Some chemicals flow, you have a dopamine rush, and that is why you feel happy. Can happiness be induced just through chemicals, different chemical reactions in the body? Is it just, is happiness limited to that, or do you have a different definition of happiness?
Okay, so again, when we look at life from just a reductionist, materialistic understanding, then we are just this physical body, and this physical body is all made up of chemicals, and anything that happens to us and through us has to be explained in terms of these chemicals, bus, right? So, because I started with the assumption that I have nothing more to my existence than just what is visible, the matter, the chemicals. So every phenomena has to be explained through the matter, right? So when I start with that premise, then good luck. मतलब आपको कैसे ना कैसे उसको खींच के तोड़ के prove करना है. You can prove that, but that's not what can what will really work for us, because if happiness were in chemicals, chemicals से पूछो ना क्या वो happy हैं? Do you see happy calcium carbonate और happy hydrochloric acid की आज hydrochloric acid बहुत खुश है, कल को बहुत दुखी था, कल गुस्से में था, आज खुश हो गया? Those chemicals are just dead, inert chemicals. If they don't have something, how can they give that to us, right? So if chemicals, they don't have emotions, So how can just reaction of certain chemicals give us a result or outcome of happiness, right? So that's the first thing. And when you talk of when we talk of pleasure and happiness, that's definitely the greatest pursuit of mankind. Whatever we do is for the pursuit of happiness. In fact, Yale University में एक course run किया Dr. Larry Santos ने. So she run this course, and the Yale University was founded in 1701. And in the history of Yale University in the last 323 years, this course which she floated has been the most subscribed course. And what is the course name? Happiness 101 by Dr. Santos. So therefore everyone is looking. 3 lakh students have registered for this course, right? So everyone is looking for that happiness, but do we really get it? So if we just look at it or try to find it in the external world, in matter, in things which you can see, feel, touch, smell, or hear, taste, is happiness just limited to that, or can happiness be drawn from that? So let's go back in history. There was a king called Abdul Rahman III, the Caliph of Cordoba. Go to the medieval times in the 16th century, 15th century. So this person who was a king, so he had maintained a diary where he very religiously noted down all this, his happiness and distress का account उन्होंने maintain करके रखा. Was I happy today? No. Maybe. Yes. And out of his entire life, only 14 days was sure, yes, I am happy today. So out of a long 60 years of life, if this person who is a king says only 14 days I was truly happy, then what to speak of anyone else who doesn't have all of those resources? So resources don't bring happiness. Otherwise, people who are the biggest billionaires, biggest richest people, they must have been the most happy people. But the fact remains that it is not so. So, and this, therefore Krishna says the spelling of pleasure in this material world is, can you spell it, Jai Kishan?
Pleasure.
Pleasure. Are you sure? पढ़ा है ना English?
Yes.
Pleasure. You are sure? Lock कर दें?
Yes, Prabhu.
Krishna says wrong answer. Krishna says,
why me?
Why me? ये ही संस्पर्शजा भोगा दुःख योनय एवते आदिवंतवंत तो कौन्ते अनतेषु रमते बुधा. Krishna says in the 5th chapter of in this particular chapter we are reading that pleasure का spelling Pleasure नहीं है. Pleasure का spelling है PainSure. Pleasure is sure, not Pleasure, but PainSure. So Krishna says, Yehi samsparshaja bhoga. If your conception of pleasure or happiness is contact of senses with sense objects, contact of chemicals, or rush of hormones, this is Adi Antavant. It has a beginning, there is a high, and then there is a drop. Dopamine rush and then dopamine trough, where you sink into the depression of withdrawal symptoms. You have the hangover, right? So Krishna says it has beginning and an end, and the end is much more miserable than what temporary pleasure that you got. Adi Antamant Na Teshu Ramate Buddha, and then Dukkha Yonaya, that it is in the womb of this pleasure is the ghastly, grievous demon of distress and suffering. If you look at it, the things which we are most attached to end up causing the maximum harm and pain to us in the world. If you are, आपका जो most delicious food stuff है, मान लो आपको मिल जाता है तो क्या करते हैं? We end up overeating.
Yes.
Overeating करने के बाद क्या होता है? Then we have to suffer the consequences, either stomach upset or headaches or fever, whatever, right? So now this is in terms of things which we like to eat. Now think of people. The potential to cause maximum pain is not with people who are very distant to us, but the people who are the closest to us, whom we are most attached to, whom we want to, we have a lot of expectations from. So those are the people who can cause the greatest heartbreaks to us. So that's the womb. In the womb of that external pleasure is a pain of much greater in proportion, right? So therefore, if you see from Krishna's perspective, don't look for pleasure of chemicals contact. Don't look for pleasure in matter because it doesn't exist. पहली बात तो chemicals के पास खुद pleasure नहीं है, तुमको क्या देंगे? दूसरी बात, the illusion of that pleasure gives you a kick for some time, but then it leaves you in a very desperate and despicable situation after that, where you become very, very morose and depressed. So therefore, Krishna says, don't venture into that. So then the question is, Krishna, kya karu main? Where should I look for pleasure? So then Krishna says, I'll read out the verse to you. Yo anta sukha, it's the 24th verse. Yo anta sukha anta arama tatha anta jyotirevacha sa yogi brahma nirvanam brahma bhuto adhikachati. So Krishna says one should look for that sukha and arama, that pleasure and happiness within. And by this search for the pleasure and happiness within, one will not only be happy in this life, but also perfect one's life and get liberated from the shackles of material attachment and aversion, right? And will no longer be dependent on chemicals for happiness in life. So this is a beautiful verse, the one after that also. Let me read that. Yeah, labhante brahma nirvanam rishya shena kalmasha chinna dvaida yatatmana sarva bhuta hiterata. That those who are beyond the dualities that arise from doubts, whose minds are engaged within, who are always busy working for the welfare of all living beings, and who are free from all sins, achieve liberation in the Supreme. So you see, people who are looking for pleasure within, they are the ones who can be real well-wishers for others. Otherwise, limited resources, unlimited competition. Agar mera, the object of my pleasure is limited, there are limited resources, then the other person who covets the same resource is my enemy, is my competitor. I cannot be a well-wisher to that person. But if my pleasure is within, मुझे दूसरों से किसी को कुछ चाहिए नहीं, बाहर कुछ चाहिए नहीं, then I can give to others without any strings attached. So yes, now did you get the spelling of pleasure, Jai Kishan Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, I was definitely taught the wrong spelling back in school, and now I've got the right. Thank you, Prabhu, for enlightening me on that. It's PAIN, pain sure. Wow, and that has beautiful, that has a good meaning hidden behind it. Jokes apart, that has a good. We are face to face with reality. So thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for that. And one thing I'd like to appreciate you, Prabhu, that you link my questions so beautifully with verses to read out those Sanskrit verses for us and all our viewers. Thank you, Prabhu. That does require a little bit of effort. Thank you for taking that extra bit of effort for all of us.
Thank you.
And my final question to throw at you, Prabhu,
Okay.
which is
Chapter खत्म करके रहोगे क्या?
which is a most asked question, often asked question is, does religion cause conflict and violence? You talk about peace, you talk about equality, you talk about everyone being Satchidanand, you talk about this Anandamay Koshliya that our soul is a part of. Does religion actually cause conflict and violence?
Okay, so again, it could be the blame game. Okay, I want to find a blame, for the problems in the society. So religion is a scapegoat. But if we look again, antar jyoti evacha, if we look within, then we will see that the cause of all forms of conflict, whether at the level of countries, nations, whether at the level of societies, communities, religions, families, or within our own self, is because of false ego. The conflict is not out of some high ideals. Conflicts are more often than not caused by false ego, because I want to take pride and subdue someone else. So in the name of nation, I'll try to curb and decimate some other nation's existence. That's ego. One person sitting in Russia and one person sitting in Ukraine, there's a war of their egos, and which is causing widespread suffering to all the people of those two nations, right? So is it a war of nations or war of egos? It's more of a war of egos, right? So at all levels, the conflicts are caused by the war of egos. So it's not that religion causes these conflicts and violence. Religion plus ego can lead to violence, and similarly, money plus ego can lead to corruption, right? When you bring ego with corruption, with money, you will end up doing corruption. And you have technology plus ego is equal to manipulation. So you can then keep blaming money for all the problems of the society. You can keep blaming technology for all the problems of society, but the real culprit is the ego. The single letter word I, जो sentence में कहीं भी आएगा, beginning में, middle में, it has to be capital. I cannot bow down. So that I, that ego, is the cause of all violence and conflicts. And on the contrary, religion, the true religion of the soul, I'm not talking of religion of the body, a flag. ये मेरा flag है, ये मेरा झंडा है, ये तेरा झंडा है, मेरा झंडा अच्छा है, तेरा झंडा बेकार है. Not that religion. That is again bodily designations. But the religion of the soul, the Atma, is to serve God and serve all the children of God. And when we practice that religion with the understanding of who God is and what is my relationship with God, it can solve all the conflicts, all the problems of the world, because then I develop equal vision. When we see Paramatma everywhere, we get the vision of Paramatma, and from the spectacles of Paramatma, we can see everyone with love. Otherwise, there's always hate, there's always competition. लेकिन अगर हम परमात्मा या भगवान के चश्मे से दुनिया को देखेंगे, then we can really have true love. And therefore, the last verse of this chapter is telling, 5.29, योगिनामपि सर्वेषां मद्गतेन अंतरात्मना श्रद्धावान भजते यो मां समे युक्ततमा मता. No, this is the 6th chapter. The 5th chapter, the last verse says, Bhoktaram yagya tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarva bhutanam gyatva mam shanti richati. So Krishna says in this 5.29 verse that Bhoktaram yagya tapasam, when we understand that God, Krishna, is the supreme controller, proprietor, and the best well-wishing, loving friend, then there's only but peace. There is but only peace. There's but only happiness. So the peace formula for individuals, for communities, for societies, for nations, and for the entire world is to acknowledge that God is the supreme creator, controller, benefactor, and lover of all beings. And when we live in awareness and acknowledgement of this principle, then we live our lives in service to that God. And then there is no question of any conflict. There is only synergy, which brings us all together rather than divides us into different fragments. You are talking of equal vision. Equal vision is not possible without that common platform. And that common platform, that common thread which binds all of us together is our love for the Supreme Creator, who is everyone's father. Pitahamasya Jagato Mata Dhata Pitamaha. So in that sense, there can be true peace and harmony and synergy in the world, in families, in communities, and amongst nations. Does that satisfy you, Jaykishan
Yes.
Prabhu?
Thank you for echoing the words of.
And peaceful.
Sorry, Prabhu. Sorry, come again, Prabhu.
Does that make you happy and peaceful?
Yes, Prabhu, very much. The fact that you echo the words of 5.29 Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasam, which gives the ultimate peace formula. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for giving that understanding, which has its roots in who am I, who is God, and what is my relation. And that is where we can find unending peace, not only for the society, but for our families, for the country, for different countries together. And yes, that the ending of a chapter doesn't get any better with the ultimate peace formula for all of us. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for that. At this stage, I'd like you to have a free hand and choose any question that you wish to answer from the chat box based on how much time you have.
But just to satisfy everyone, we'll just take one question. And in that question, we hope that everyone is happy and satisfied. You can consider your question also being answered through someone else. In that sense, we can all have equality. So this question by Anvay, can't a combination of chemicals result in happiness? Yeah, we can try it. Bring out those chemicals, add them. If it cannot happen outside, how can it happen within? Like in terms of what do they call it, epistemology, उसका जो constitution है उसमें कहीं happiness नहीं है, so how can it generate happiness, right? So whether we can add up or subtract chemicals, but by nature chemicals are dead and inert. Real happiness is in service, is in relationships. True happiness is on the level of service and relationships, and not material service and material relationships, but spiritual service and spiritual relationships. Now, even if you think of, let me prove this to you, कि chemical combination से जो happiness मिलता है वो क्या सच में happiness है. So let us look at some of the say the potential of happiness. So if we think that जो टंग के ऊपर आपका गुलाब जामुन आता है उसमें happiness है. When the tongue has certain saliva chemicals and the gulab jamun comes in contact, that is happiness. Okay, the combination of those chemicals. Okay, let's try it. I'll serve you one gulab jamun, you will say 10x happiness. When I serve you the second, you say 12x happiness. When I serve you third, you say 9x. I serve you the fourth, you say 5x. When I serve you fifth, you say 2x. Sixth, you say no happiness, stop. I still force feed you. You say minus 2x, then minus 5x. Then you feel like, taking that gulab jamun and throwing on my face. So the thing is that it has a duration. That chemical perception of happiness, it has just a certain duration. And say, suppose while eating that gulab jamun, if I bite my tongue, I'm so greedy for it कि वो गुलाब जामुन चबाने की जगह मैं अपनी टंग को चबा गया, तो वो उसका पेन कितने दिन तक रहता है? For a week. But the pleasure of that gulab jamun is for 7 seconds. So you can compare. Are you really going to get happiness? Is this world designed for this kind of pleasure, this chemical pleasure, or not? The duration of chemical pleasure is 7 seconds. The pain of chemical, the chemical pain lasts for 1 week. The intensity, again, you can see the intensity of आपने एक मसाज लिया है, अच्छा आयुर्वेदिक मसाज लिया है, you come out of that massage, you say अच्छा लग रहा है, थोड़ा relieved लग रहा है, I'm feeling happy. But then बाहर आते ही आपके पैर में कांटा चुभ गया. बॉडी के सारे पोर्स को मसाज किया है, जो 20 करोड़ पोर्स है सबको मसाज करके तेल से फ्री किया है, अच्छा किया है, बट देन एक पोर में कांटा चुभ जाता है. सो देन व्हाट हैपेंस? You can't, you forget the massage, that all evaporates into thin air, right? So the intensity of pain in this world is greater than the intensity of pleasure. Similarly, intensity of crush and intensity of breakup, dekh lo aap log. So then the variety. So if you look at how do we derive pleasure, is from our senses, and senses are just on the surface area. Our eyes, our ears, our nose, our tongue, our skin. It's just the surface area which can give us pleasure. Our kidney doesn't give us any pleasure. Our liver doesn't give us any pleasure. Our heart doesn't give us any pleasure. पता भी नहीं लगता है कि क्या चल रहा है अंदर, right? But all of these inner organs have the potential to give us extreme degrees of pain, right? So the pleasure is in the surface area, pain is in volume. Each and every cell is a time bomb. जो फटेगा, and it is every organ has an expiry date. We are thinking, "Arey, this is pleasure, that is pleasure," but then it is not designed to give us pleasure. Krishna is telling. And then tuning. Our brain, our mind is tuned in to catch pain waves and not pleasure waves, right? You ate a nice mango. मैंगो खाया, मैंगो खाने के बाद में आपके एक दांत में उसका फाइबर लग गया. The fiber got stuck in one of those, in between two teeth, and what happens? Your tongue doesn't go to any of those other 32 teeth. वो उसी teeth के पास जाएगा, right? So our mind is designed to catch pain waves more than pleasure waves. The entire body is healthy, लेकिन एक कहीं पे कट लग गया है. Our mind again and again reminds us, there's a cut, there's a cut, there's a cut, right? So therefore, chemical pleasure, even if it is there, what is the significance, what is the value of it if it is ultimately lasting for just a short duration of time, and it is eventually going to lead to much more pain of greater proportion. So therefore Krishna says Bahya sparsheshu asaktatma vindanti atmani sukam. This is another verse in this chapter where Krishna says, an intelligent yogi doesn't look for pleasure outside in the chemicals, looks for pleasure within, because pleasure is in the spirit soul, not in the body, right? So with this, we will conclude our session today, and thank you all for joining for this 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And we are darting ahead towards the 6th chapter in the next session. And I would request all of you to spend some time, revise the 5th chapter, and if possible, also go through the 6th chapter so that you are prepared for our next discussion.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for that super enlivening session. And yes, we'll be back next week with the 6th chapter. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you, and Hare Krishna. Shri
Hare
Prabhupada ki Jai.
Krishna.